Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 139 of Two Left Thumbs, your weekly gaming podcast that is now in feed spots, top 20 Australian gaming podcasts this year. Thank you very much for that. I guess that's your fault because it's about listening and website views and stuff. So, thanks. It's pretty neat. It kind of surprised me on an idle Tuesday afternoon when I got a notification on Twitter. Pretty awesome. Anyway, you want to hear for that? My name is Puppiez. Joining me today, it's Jason Smith. How you doing, man?
Not too bad yourself.
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's getting late for me today, but I've had a good day off. No work today, which has been kind of nice. Just kind of chilling around the house, and the kids are back at school now, so I don't have them screaming around, running around causing chaos, which is also nice. A nice quiet day. It's good.
It is good. Let's have our catch up conversation and pretend that we didn't just talk pleasantries like 5 minutes
Oh,
before.
right, exactly. We totally didn't make small talk like 30 seconds ago before this started.
Yeah.
It's fine, right? Uh, would you like to mention the collectibles again?
Oh yeah. I have that exact
Yeah.
same stormtrooper figure. That's crazy. I should have gone and grabbed
My
him before we
God.
started. That would have been a much better decision.
Yeah, that's all right. It's fine. We're all about bad decisions here. Uh,
I'm gonna apologize in advance for my overall redness. I took a very hot shower this morning, and since that was a whopping 10 minutes ago, my body's still recovering from that a little bit. So
fair. I'll,
if I
I'll,
if
I'll,
If I look flushed, it's not anything you did. I'm not crushing on you too hard over here or anything like that. Just warm, very warm.
oh, I was starting to read into that too. Damn. Uh, it's all right. If I open the right browser, I turn into a ghost. So, you know, it's a whole thing. So, for folks listening at home, who are you and what do you do?
So I'm Jason Smith, as you said, or JSaws if you follow me on Twitter, and I am the developer of CULTIC and also the everything else on CULTIC because it's kind of a one man show. But that's who I am, at least in regards to why I'm here on the show today. I imagine.
Yeah, totally. I was hoping to get some deep dive secrets as well, but we'll get into that later. Um, so Coltic, how did it start? Where did the idea come from?
So, like most of the folks who are into the retro shooter scene now, I grew up playing, Doom and Build Engine games and Dark Forces and stuff like that on my dad's computer, and so those were, a very early gaming experience for me, and it was always something that I wanted to do because I started messing around with game development when I was in like fifth grade or so, but of course I was just using like Game Maker 5 and like sprites that I would download slash steal from the internet, and so I obviously wasn't anywhere near making like a 3D game, and and so it was always kind of something that stayed in the back of my mind. And then after I played Blood for the first time, which was probably when I was in like middle school, um, I was like, they like really resonated with me, like everything about it really clicked, and I was like, I really want to make a game like this someday. But I wasn't even into the 3D space. I actually didn't start 3D game development until 2016 was the first time I ever messed with like modeling or like working in a 3D engine or anything like that. It was all just 2D up to that point. Um, and so I had this kind of idea for a storyline and for gameplay for Cultic, but I just excuse me, I just kind of sat on it because I didn't have the skills to make it what I wanted it to be. And there were a few times after 2016 when I was in the 3D game development market where I tried to like start it, but either like I couldn't get the movement feeling right, or most often I couldn't get the art feeling right. Like I couldn't nail down an art style that I really liked. And so I just kept like putting it back on the back burner, and then just kind of refine the story whenever I would have new ideas for it. And then, if you like, the first couple of tweets about Cultic were just like some sprite work, and I was actually working on a different project. I actually had an idea for kind of like a cryptid hunting kind of game, just kind of like an open space like game where you get dropped in. I was following all of my Phasmophobia hype because I had been playing that for pretty much the entire end of 2020, and I was like, I really like the like investigation part of this game, but I wish it had more of like a combat aspect, like more of a fighting back. And so I had this idea for a game where you would like Basically have like a daytime hunting phase of looking for clues for like whatever cryptid was in the area, and then you would use what you had gathered to determine what equipment you would bring back for the nighttime phase when you would actually hunt it. And I was like, I'm gonna do like a PS1 aesthetic for this because that's easier to work with as a solo developer, and kind of more in line with my skill set where it's at. And uh, and so I modeled that lever action rifle and a quick little like first person rig for it. And then out of curiosity, I was like, because I had just gotten into using palettes in A Spray for a different project, and I was like, I wonder what it would look like if I just like threw this into a sprite, like rendered it out to a 2D sprite instead of a 3D model, and then converted it into a color palette, just for giggles, and like it looked great, and I was like, oh, I think this is it. And so I like did some cleanup work on it and like did a couple animations and then ran a test with a cultist model that I had from an old project, actually the last time that I tried to get CULTIC off the ground. Um, and and that looked pretty good too. And then so that's kind of where it all started. Like I posted those sprites on Twitter and like it got a good amount of engagement right off the bat. And so that was it. It was time to start moving on that project.
Nice, nice. So you kind of something you've been working on for a while. You mentioned a few other side gigs. So have you worked in any other game development, or is it always just kind of been like a solo project thing for you?
It's always just been, a hobby thing for me. I've never done it professionally, so, it's I've always I I went to school to be a graphic designer, photographer, videographer, that kind of stuff. Did that for like 5 years, and then switched over to like a technology role, working more with computers and like software support and stuff like that. And I did that for a few years until now, and I'm actually now working on CULTIC full time. I just 2 weeks ago I left my day job, to start this terrifying financially insecure new chapter of my life.
Ah, yes, the wonderful roller coaster that it is game development. I can imagine that it can be absolutely terrifying, like kind of staring down the barrel of absolutely no financial security and just going all in on something that you've kind of been working on and off for your entire life. As a one man show, doing everything that's involved with the game from art to kind of building the world and creating the story. What are some of the things you've struggled with and found challenging throughout the development process?
The biggest thing has been probably art and then level design, which are two areas that like my art skills are, for like 3D are very much still developing. I feel like every time I make a model, it's better than the last one. And I kind of it's actually to the point where like pretty soon I'm probably going to have to redo a lot of the early models for Cultic just because like I've gotten better at modeling like humanoid characters, so I need to redo the cultists because they look really bad as like a 3D model. And so the art is something that's just like still developing as I try to like get a good feel for the art style of Cultic. And then just kind of like some of the art assets aren't entirely consistent right now, and I would like them to be.
Right.
And then definitely level design because like all of my previous experience with game development, I was doing a lot of like roguelike games. And so you're building like randomly generated levels. And so you're effectively just designing like set pieces rather than actual like fully fleshed out levels. And so, I'm going from like designing tiny little rooms and you can design like small, interesting set pieces. And then you just let the dungeon generator stitch them all together. But now I'm having to design, like fully fledged levels, like fleshed out, traversable, explorable areas, and that's something that was totally new to me. And so, like the demo map for Cultic has changed a ton since its first iterations, and it will probably change more because that's going to be one of those things like my art style, where the more levels I develop, the more I'm learning. And the better I'm getting at, putting those pieces together and making levels that are interesting to explore and have, secrets and don't feel like there's a lot of backtracking and stuff like that. So those are probably like the biggest learning curves for me, I would say. Um, the rest of it I enjoy, like getting to the actual like coding part, as long as it's not doing like menus and save systems, which are the worst, is fun. And then like doing the
What
music and
makes it
audio
more
is fun.
difficult than anything else?
Because it's just like I don't know, like a lot of my coding experience is very much just from like that game maker era where you're just kind of like mainly coding like object behaviors and enemy behaviors and bullet behaviors. And so then getting in and doing menus is a whole different ballgame because then you're having to like you're having to pull in like input output from the system, and you're having to deal with like different file systems. You're having to do consideration for, is somebody going to navigate this using a mouse and keyboard, or a controller, or just their keyboard? Are they going to completely skip the mouse? And so it's just that's one of those like first things you have to start considering other people's hardware and how they're going to be accessing things. And so that's probably, I don't know, I imagine that's probably what makes it such a huge pain in the ass. But yeah, I really don't like working on menus. It's not fun at all.
Yeah, I think menus are. I mean, I know nothing about game development, and menus are one of those things you don't really, as a player, you don't really think about too much because it's just like, oh, you click on the thing, you go to the thing, it's fine. It's very very simple feedback from a player's perspective. But it's interesting to hear like there's a lot more complex in the coding side of things. Again, not knowing anything about game development or coding at all, I just like playing games. Uh, but yeah, yeah, it's and then you get into game development, which I'm sure there's quite a bit of that with bug testing.
Yeah, but in that case, I am the support agent and the developer, so I can actually fix things when they're broken. So I don't just have to get yelled at by clients when things are broken. So it's a nice change of pace.
I mean, that's good too. I mean, you've got that direct line of connection with yourself too. I guess you can just like, oh hey, there's a problem here. I can fix that now, as opposed to like traditional game development where there's more than one person, and it's you've got to go through the chain of like it's got to go to this person, get approved, come back through the chain. I imagine that'd be quite freeing.
It's nice and it's not nice at the same time, because it's like if there's a bug, I can fix it, but if there's a bug, I have to fix it. It's just like I can't pass it off to anybody else. If my menus aren't working, it's me. I have to deal with it.
Yeah. I suppose it's like you gotta look at you go, oh, look, I can end my work day today. I'll come back to that tomorrow.
Okay.
Uh,
That's right. That's what I'm honestly. That's what I'm most excited about not having like a rigid 8 to 5 anymore. Is that if I wake up in the morning and I'm just like my anxiety is super high and I just like can't work in that moment, I can just take an hour or two, play some games, read some articles, and then start working when I'm feeling better, and then just work a little later into the night if I need to, or if I need to take a day off for mental health, or the dentist or anything like that. I can actually do that, which is great. The job I just left, I was like me and one other guy working like basically doing support for like four different softwares at once. And so like if one of us was out sick, the other person's day just turned into a train wreck, so we like couldn't take time off. It was awful. So I'm really really glad to be out of that. The money was nice. The lack
it's
of a
always
soul
handy.
was not nice. Yeah.
So while we're following that rabbit hole, like work life balance before you kind of quit to full time. Um, how was that trying to kind of develop a game on the side while also trying to pay your bills?
Well, there's that. It's kind of hard to describe a work-life balance when there's no life there. It was basically like eight to five was my day job, and then like leading up to Realms Deep, like 5 to 11 was working on Cultic. It was just like I had a deadline and I had a lot of stuff to do, and so getting the burnout was very real. It was just like there's no free time to really do anything, and if I did decide to take an evening off to go like hang out with friends or hang out with my girlfriend or something, then it was like I'm just like sitting there the whole time thinking like I really should be working on Cultic right now. Like, so I'm really excited to be able to actually put work down and enjoy some free time. That's gonna be really nice. But again, the money. I have to start budgeting a lot smarter. I have to stop buying guns on a whim whenever I feel like it, and I have to stop doing things like that.
Yeah, I imagine things will get tighter, but I mean, surely like it'll get a lot better. So you're going full time. This is because you've now picked up a publisher, correct?
Right. Yep.
Um, tell us about that.
So, gosh, this would have been like of May of this year. Like all I had done on Cultic at that point was like the first set of like Axe Cultist sprites and just like a small little chunk of terrain. It was actually the mass grave that you wake up in, but like just the terrain. There's like nothing else. Um and then like the player, I think I had like the hatchet and the lever action implemented. It was a very small like project at that point. I was still like trying to figure out how I wanted it to feel and how I wanted it to look. And then Fred from 3D Realms or from Slipgate messages me, and he's just like, "Hey, we wanna chat with you about Cultic." And I had a couple of different people message me at that point, just like asking about the projects, like, "Oh, this looks like blood. It's really exciting." And so I figured it was that because at the time I didn't know who Fred was. But then I looked him up and I saw he was from 3D Realms, and I was like, "Uh-oh, this is probably." Like I assumed at that point they were just excited because it was like a retro shooter. Um, and then, so I get, since they're all in Denmark, it was a very early morning meeting. I got up at like it's like 6 in the morning, and we hopped on a Discord at like 7, and it was just Fred and a couple of folks from 3D Realms, and they were just like talking about how cool they thought Cultic looked, and they were like, we really want to make this a 3D Realms game, and I was like, sorry, what? Like this is I mean, this game is literally just like 16 sprites and a small chunk of terrain. Like that's all the game is right now. And you guys are like, and they're like, oh no, like we think it's really got some promise, and they wanted to publish it, and they wanted to see what they could do to support me. And that was, I mean, it's been my dream to be like a game developer since I was like 10. So that was, and I'm 29 now. I'm very old. And so
You've got years yet. You're fine.
I was like, what is happening? And so I just the imposter syndrome in me. I was like, I mean, that's obviously a very, very tantalizing offer, but I don't feel like the game is in a state right now where I should be making any deals because I don't even know like if it's going to be playable or fun. And so we basically scheduled like at the end of April, so like a month and change from where we were then. I was like, I'm going to put together like a 1 level demo for you guys. I'm going to actually flesh the game out a bit more, and I'll let you play that. And if you still are interested, then we can talk. Because I didn't want to be like, oh yeah, oh you can, let's make us a 3D Realms game when I could literally just give up on it the next day. Because so I wanted to be a little more sure that the project was going somewhere before I made that big of a step. And so I just like crunched hard on it and added in like all of the weapons and a couple more enemies, and then built the demo level, which is about like half of the size that it is now. And then like got that ready for them. And it was a super janky demo. It was very buggy. There was no saving, no checkpoints. Um, but it worked and it was playable, and it kind of gave you a feel for like the gunplay and everything. And so we met back up and they played it, and they're like, "Yeah, we're still on board." So, and then the rest is history.
Nice.
But so I will say there's been like the two the two hardest days of work I've ever had at like my day job was the morning that I had my first 3D Realms meeting, just like having to go to my day job after that, and then the day after Realms Deep, like the day after the Cultic demo dropped and everybody they announced it was a 3D Realms game, and I had people on YouTube making videos about Cultic and people messaging me on Twitter all over, and then I had to go to my day job, and like first thing in the morning was just like getting yelled at by angry clients, and I'm like, yeah, this ain't it. so um I'm really glad that we were able to turn this into a full-time thing, because it was like the hype was real at that point. But yeah, so I still, the 3D Realms thing is still, it's very exciting. I've got like 16 more Discords that I'm a part of than I used to. So every time I hear the Discord sound, it's kind of a mad hunt to try to figure out where that notification was coming from. But it's cool. Like I'm getting to work as a game developer, and it's kind of like the best of both worlds, because I'm getting, I'm a bit of a control freak, which is why I'm a solo developer. And so like it's nice that I'm getting to work on Cultic by myself at the moment, and like kind of make sure that everything aligns to my vision. But then being a part of 3D Realms also means that I kind of get to see like what things look like on the back end, and like I get to see like talking about like marketing for Cultic, or like planning things out for it, and I get to see how all of that works at like a real game developer, and it's really cool. It's like all the best parts of being in the industry without like the AAA crunch, or the micromanagement of like a bigger studio. So it's been really cool.
That's awesome. And three and Realms being quite a notable place for old school shooters as well. Duke Nukem and stuff like that. Um, that'd be fucking exciting, man. I'm happy for you. That's amazing. So like, were there any changes? Like I said, like there's obviously you're going full time now. Were there any like major changes from solo to working under 3D Realms?
Not so far, really. The biggest thing was leading up to Realms Deep, Fred kind of asked me if I could tone down my Twitter a little bit because I was posting like every day. I was like, "Hey, look at this thing I added! Look at this thing I added!" And he wanted there to be a few more surprises when people finally like saw the demo in action. So I had to go from like posting once a day to posting like once a month or posting like really minor things. And so that was probably the only really big change. I'm sure they would prefer that I let them help me with the game a little bit more, but I'm just not ready for that yet. I really want to get like the first like chapter of the game done and really have it be all in house, all under my belt, so I can kind of mold the game into what I want it to be. And then when it's like a really solid picture of what the gameplay should look like, of what the art should look like, of what the level design should be, then I think I'd be more comfortable with bringing people onto the team. But as it is right now, like I'm not even 100% sure like what everything's going to look like in Cultic, so it's impossible for me to act as like a director, to other staff members helping because like I don't
Right.
know. I don't know yet. I don't know what all the enemies are going to be. I don't know what all the levels are going to look like. So until I kind of have that more established, I think it's going to be unfair to bring other people on because it's going to be a lot of me just kind of shrugging and be like, I don't know, let's make it look cool. Like that's kind of what I'm doing right now. Make
It's
it
just
fun, make it look cool.
I'm figuring it out, and then you end up with someone else's interpretation in your game. So hang on, that's not quite what I wanted, and that I imagine that would cause some issues.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. So I'm glad to see like you're just like you're very grounded, and like I need to know what I'm doing first before I can like just run with this too far, because if we get too far down the track, it's gonna ruin what we've got going on here, which is really respectable. So thank you for being one of those people that give a shit about where things are going. It's kind of nice.
My anxiety won't let me be any other way.
Ah,
So
yes, classic anxiety. You love to hate it. So going forward, I mean, you're still fleshing out the game quite a bit. I'm not here to probe you about details that you can't tell people, but what's the plan going forward? From here.
So right now it's just getting like the first chapter of the game done, I think, like the first episode, so to speak. Then that's just going to involve kind of getting the rest of the enemies done, that I want to have in the first chapter and designing out the levels and just kind of getting all the system stuff in place. Like I spent most of last week finally getting like the save load system working so I can actually have like quick saves and not force people to use checkpoints all the time. Um, and then just kind of using the folks in the community that have downloaded the demo have been a great resource for like playtesting, and it's kind of nice because it's like I'm not giving them like I'm not giving them a full game, and so I don't charge, I'm not charging for the demo or anything like that, but enough people are excited about it and like playing the demo that it's a nice source of, you kind of get like the upsides of early access of like getting people to test and kind of give feedback on stuff, but then you're also not charging people for it, so you don't risk like building that distrust where somebody buys your product and then isn't satisfied with it, and as a demo they can just say, hey, I didn't really like this, but as something that they paid for, they're like, I didn't like this, so I'm going to give it a bad review, or I feel cheated, or I feel like I need to get a refund for this. So it's kind of a nice like low pressure way to approach that. And so it's going to be, I have kind of a big Halloween update planned that I'm pretty excited about. But I'm not going to say anything about right now, other than
Fun.
just Halloween. And I'm hoping that kind of gets some more stuff into the game that I want people to test out so I can get feedback on. And I think the feedback on those mechanics will probably be enough to drive it forward until the end of the first chapter. And then from there, who knows? If it really blows up after the first chapter, then I've got a ton of levels planned out, perfectly content to keep churning stuff out. Or maybe it'll be a giant flop, and I'll have to go back to a full-time job. But we're not going to think about that. We're going to be
No,
optimistic.
no,
I mean,
no.
we're going to say it's going to
That's
be a smash hit,
it's
right?
gonna be fantastic. I mean, like I said, I've played it, and it's a lot of fun. And you saying Halloween like updates, I'm like, oh, that could be so much fun. Because it's already got like that very kind of spooky vibe to it, with like the kind of the way things are colored and textured, and the whole theme around it as well. There's a certain chill in the air when you wake up in a mass grave and go, oh shit, how the fuck did I get here? Uh,
Yeah,
yeah. Um.
happens to the best of us.
Yeah, right. It's typical Sunday morning. You wake up after a massive weekend out. You're in a mass grave. It's like, okay, cool. Where am I, and why are the cultists? And there's a convenient axe here.
Sunday morning in a mass grave. Are you trying to take this into a political direction? Little deep religious conversation. I wasn't ready for that. I'm gonna have to go get a different drink.
Yeah. Let's we may need something a little stronger for that. So you've been doing this. You've been doing this, working on this sport since 2016, roughly. I mean, you've been running on the idea for a long time.
Right.
And you've done a few side projects. Is this kind of what once you get this done, will it be continuing on this, or you want to try something else in game development?
So I have, oh God, I probably have like no less than 6 other like game design documents of like games that I want to work on, but I just haven't had the time. And so it's kind of going to depend on the reception of Cultic. Like if people really, really like it, then obviously I would have no problem continuing with it. I would love to do a sequel, probably move into like full 3D, maybe like upgrade to like Quake 2 style graphics instead of like 2D stuff or something like that. I think it'd be a cool style to explore. But by the time Cultic's out, I think like the whole boomer shooter fad is kind of on the end. On like the end of its swing right now,
Right.
and so if Cultic comes out and it's kind of clear that those are going away, then maybe I'll shift Cultic into like a survival horror direction. I think that'd be a lot of fun to do.
I
But I
think
don't
you're
know.
right.
It would be great to make a sequel. It would be great to do expansions. But I also have other games I'd love to work on. And so like my goal ideally is that a year from now or maybe a little more, I can release chapter 1 and it sells enough that I don't have to go back to a full-time job, just enough to kind of keep me afloat so that I can continue working on it. And then hopefully that just goes like that's just a perpetual thing, like I can make enough money to keep developing and make another game and make enough money to keep going. Like that's the goal, that's the dream, right? So that's kind of what I would like to do. But yeah, so there are other ideas for games I'd like to work on. I really, really want to develop a VR game at some point, but like right now, Unity's VR support and like the editor is really, really bad. Like they decided they're like, well, they did the same thing they're doing with their multiplayer right now. They were like, well, we're gonna get rid of our in-house solution, or we're gonna get rid of like these third-party plugins for VR because we're doing our own in-house one. And then they got rid of the third-party ones without releasing their own. At least that was the last time I looked at it.
Oh
And so
no,
like
that's
I really want to do something in VR. Maybe Cultic will get a VR mode in the future. Maybe that'll be my dive into VR. But I'm a big VR supporter. I love it. So I would love to do a VR game. But I have dabbled in it before, and it is a huge pain in the ass to do VR development. It's like not only from like a testing standpoint, because every time I want to test the game, I have to like put my headset on and then like get and stand up and go get oriented and then like test the thing out. It's not just like clicking play and then mouse and keyboarding your way through. And then like you can't animate anything that the player does. And so it's like, if you're making like a hack and slash, it's easy. You click left on the mouse and then your player plays an animation of swinging the sword and you register a hit at a certain point in that animation. It's easy. But like with VR, I don't know if I give a player a sword, I don't know what they're going to do with it. Like they might swing it, they might throw it, they might hold it backwards and try to hit people with the handle. They might take big sweeping lunges with the sword, or they might like just sit there and wiggle their controller around. So it's like you have to like everything has to be like physics based and everything. It's just like it's so much harder to work with unless you're going to make something really shallow like a rail shooter or something like that, where you're really just making an arcadey experience. So, and now with games like Boneworks and Blade and Sorcery and Half-Life Alyx out there that are all just like phenomenal examples of how to do VR correctly. It's like I don't even know if there's now. It's like when VR was kind of getting on its feet and there weren't a lot of AAA titles, it was more tantalizing to be like, oh, I could make a cool VR game. But then everybody went and made cool VR games, and so now it's like now you've like I can't top Boneworks. That game's incredible. Like I can't top the quality of Half-Life Alyx, and so it's like it's a little harder to want to get into it now. But anyway, so yeah, I would say like finish Cultic, make enough money on that to continue developing full time, and then probably expand Cultic a bit, maybe a sequel if people want it. But who knows?
awesome. So VR games. I'll double back that in a little bit because I find that interesting because I again know nothing, and you're going from like talking 2D to essentially what 4D it counts as VR. Imagine
Yeah,
there's
the
a,
fourth dimension
massive
and
there's a
the
massive
fourth
world of
dimension is haptic feedback when you run into a wall in real life.
trip over the cord and hit the floor. There's the fourth dimension just on your nose, bang.
That's right.
Um, so you've obviously played like games like Boneworks and Half-Life Alyx and all that kind of stuff that have really kind of inspired you to kind of look at that space. And like you said, it's a development hell, trying to figure out what the players are doing. Is environmental building different? Like I said, like with level design and stuff, is that different as well? Going in like doing the kind of similar thing, or is it very different with VR?
It's the design. I mean, I haven't done a whole lot of work with it to say for sure, but just like from like a concept, like a conceptual standpoint, the biggest thing is like trying to figure out how your players are going to traverse the environment. Because like the one thing that Boneworks did that was so cool is that they didn't design their VR environment to be this thing that you played by just teleporting around. It's like it's a full 3D environment. You can climb on things. Your body is a physics rig. It's like one of my favorite things about Boneworks is the fact that like if you want to climb up on like a ledge, you like put your hands on it and you push down and it lifts your player up because you're like a physical rig. But the problem is that you can't do that for all VR players because some people get super nauseous in VR. And so like it's one of those things where you run this risk reward scenario where you can make a game like Boneworks that's like super immersive and or gives the player a ton of freedom, but you're also going to alienate players who need like teleportation movement because they get too nauseous. But like you can't play Boneworks with teleportation movement. It doesn't work. Like the whole game breaks down. Whereas and then you have games like Skyrim where the environment design's more like how do we change this so that we aren't making VR players puke? And Skyrim VR kind of screwed that up by starting the game in the cart moving sideways in VR, and it's like so the game starts and you're like, oh cool, I'm gonna throw up now. And so, yeah, I think like the environment design, you mainly just have to look at like how are people going to move through this environment? Like, is our game designed around needing to climb and jump and swing or is it something that can be, very is it more like a walking simulator kind of path where we're not expecting the player to run and jump a whole lot? Like Saints and Sinners, I would say is designed more like a walking simulator where everything is pretty much like roads and stairs. There's not a whole lot of platforming. There's not a whole lot of verticality because that kind of stuff is hard to do in VR without making people puke. So, but both games are very good, but they're very different games. And like Half-Life Alex is the same way. Where like I made the mistake of playing Boneworks before I played Half-Life Alex, which really negatively affected my experience because like Half-Life Alex looks great and like mechanically it feels great to play. But going from Boneworks where you can like climb and run and jump on everything to Half-Life Alex where you have environments that like all I want to do is like climb around and look inside things and explore, but then you're very limited to this one track. Like you can't jump around. Like going through windows is just like teleporting through them. Going up and down ladders is just teleporting up and down them. And so it's like but that's the way those environments were designed. Like they were designed to keep the players from having to run and jump. There's not a whole lot of, it's not like Half-Life 1. You're not crouch jumping all over the place. You're not doing first person platforming all over the place. So I think it's just like what kind of experience you're wanting to design for the player and whether or not that experience results in them running to the bathroom in 30 minutes to stick their head in the toilet.
Um, so speaking of player traversal, in my infinite research, I was watching a few speedruns of CULTIC. Did you did you expect any of that to happen?
Well, I knew that like when I made like the slide, for example, I was like, I don't really want to limit this because I think people could use it for speedrunning. And then like when I put the dodge in, I was like, I could put a cooldown on this, but I think it's more fun to see what people would use it for, how they would use it for like speedrunning. And it's kind of one of those things that's like you can take those things out, you can put limits on them, but like it was one of those things that was like I'll know that Cultic has made it when people start speedrunning it and when there's rule 34 of it. Like that's how you know your game has made it, right?
Yep.
And so speedrunning has already happened. And like somebody like literally pointed out to me that like Cultic has like a speedrunning category on one of these like speedrun tracker sites. And it's like it's cool. It's not just so much like people like breaking the game or abusing game mechanics, but it's like the fact that people care enough about your game to do that. Like they're like, I like this game enough that I'm gonna see how fast I can beat it. How little time do I need to spend with this game? Which maybe that's telling me something else that they don't want to spend much time in it. But just
I
like
mean,
you have to enjoy a game in order to want to get back in there and like see how you can optimize your runs, right? And so I have to imagine it's one of those things that like that's just like I guess a sign that the movement in Cultic like feels good, that like people enjoy the movement system and it doesn't feel it's not annoying or cumbersome to move around the game world. Otherwise, I would assume that speedrunning would be terrible and a huge pain in the butt. But I don't know. Maybe people just are chasing the leaderboards and it has less to do with the game quality. But no, it was very exciting. It was also great that like It was like day one too. I mean, it was like before the Realms Deep announcement. I
Wow.
think even there was like already a speed run up, and I hadn't even announced that the demo was out yet. So, which was a fun
They
story
were,
in
they
and
were
of
hunting
itself.
for
But
something fresh then, weren't they? Jeez.
yeah, that was crazy because like I had never released the game on Steam before, and I was really paranoid that like we were gonna have this Realms Deep trailer and it was gonna be like like Cultic demo available now, and then it was gonna be like JK demo not available now because I screwed something up in the publishing or whatever, and so I was like I asked 3D Realms if we could publish it quietly Friday morning so that I would have all of Friday to like to test it, to test the demo, to make sure it ran properly, to make sure I had uploaded the build properly, and just to make sure it looked correct on the store and like I could preview everything. And so we did, and like, it was it's not it wasn't like for sale, so it doesn't show up in like Steam's catalog. It doesn't show up on like 3D Realms' like publisher catalog. The only way to find it is to specifically go to the search bar and type in Cultic and look for it. Like that's the only way you could have found it. And like so this is like 8:30 in the morning on Friday, and I had just sent it live, and I was like in the middle of testing it, and one of my friends messages me, and they're like, I just saw somebody tweet about Colta, congratulations, and I was like, what? She's like, yeah, someone just said they loved the demo, and I was like, how the hell did they already find out about the demo? And so I go and I look, and like sure enough, someone's already, and I was like, okay, that's fine. It's just one guy. He doesn't have any like many followers. Like it'll be all right. And then like two other people who both had like 50 and 70,000 followers respectively were like, oh my god, the Cultic demo's out, and I was like, shit, like this is bad. And so I'm like messaging with 3D Realms. I'm like, what do we want to do about this? Like, was like, do you want me to take it down or like should we just like I thought it was kind of cool that like hype was building organically. Like I didn't say anything about it and I like wasn't acknowledging it. So we decided to just like leave it alone and not acknowledge that the demo was out, not respond to anything. But it was excuse me, it was tough, because like people are like speculating and asking questions and like messaging me and I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so like I went all day, didn't say anything about it. And then I went out, my like nerves were completely fried. I was like, my anxiety was just out of control. And so I was like, I'm gonna go out and drink with some friends and just try not to worry about tomorrow. And so I went out, had a couple margaritas, and then tweeted. I tweeted a photo of like an open like screen door, and I was like, has anybody seen the Cultic demo? I left my door open and I think it got out. And I apparently thought that was really funny at the time. Uh, but and it was cool. It was just it was like but like by noon, I think like by noon on Friday, like I think Alpha Beta Gamer had already done a video on it, and I was like, good lord, like that's such a quick turnaround. And then like by the end of the day, somebody had already done a speed run, and it was nuts. It was like this silent release turned into just like a bunch of hype, and people were like, wait a second, this is listed on Steam as a 3D Realms game. Like, is this a 3D Realms game? And then people are like messaging me like, hey, did 3D Realms pick you up? Like, and then I can't say anything about it because I was like, nope, my lips are sealed until tomorrow. So, and it was so liberating after Realms Deep to finally be able to just talk about it and be like, yeah, nope, this is the big secret I've been holding in for like 5 months now. Just like spent the last 5 months pretending, no, my dreams aren't coming true. What are you talking about? That's crazy.
That must have been
So
the hardest thing to do. I can't imagine how you done that. Uh, I would have
it
spilled the
was
beans
awful.
to
It
somebody.
was
Did you
awful.
tell anybody at all, like anyone like at home or anything, or did you just keep it dead silent?
I mean, like my girlfriend and a couple of my like my best friends that have known me for forever
Right.
and have been around for my entire game development career. They knew about it. But I was very, like I didn't tell anybody that I didn't have like the utmost trust in. And then and then there were some folks that helped me like play test it ahead of time, and they had like signed like like the whole NDA to play test the game, and so. But I mean, it was a very small pool of people, and like even like outside of like my parents, I think like even my family, I was just like, yeah, there's some big stuff coming, but I can't really talk about it because I've seen your Facebook, so I don't trust any of you.
Oh no, there's nothing more dangerous than a proud parent,
Yeah,
especially when you're trying to keep a secret.
yeah. I was
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna tell you this, but like if you want my dreams to continue to flourish, you have to not tell anybody. You have to keep this between us. But luckily, I think most of my parents and their friends and family don't they don't know anything about video games, so they'd be like, I don't know what a 3D realm is, but I'm happy for you.
Well done. Is it better than a 2D realm? Uh,
Yeah.
slightly. Um, so what's the process like of uploading onto Steam, like a game? Something I never really even thought about before.
It's honestly a little archaic, and it's kind of surprising that with Steam's infinite resources and like expertise of staff that it's not a more fluid process. And I kind of wonder if it's the way it is to weed out like some of the shovelware, like if they make the process a little more obtuse for getting it. But it's like you have to like become like join the partner program for Steam, but I don't think that's what they call it. I think that's what Nintendo calls it. But they have like the same thing. Like you have to like be a developer with Steam, which costs money, and then you have to like set up the actual store entity for the game, and that involves like putting together 900 different icons, because it's like, oh, you need the like library image large, library image icon, library hero image, like community background, community header, like Steam icon, taskbar icon. So there's like all these different images you have to put together for it, and those all have to be approved, and then you have to like come up with all the copy for the game and put the store page together and go through all of like the rating stuff for like overseas countries that have different rating boards than like the ESRB. And you have to like go through, and there's like all these like surveys you have to do about like the graphic and sexual content of your game, and it's just like which is funny because it's like there's no nudity, but you can blow people's heads apart. So like it's violence, yes; sex, no. Violence, yes, very yes. And then you like put together like a depot for your game, which is it's just like where all the files are stored. And then you can create different builds of the game from there, and you can create like beta branches. And that part's really fun. I really like the beta branch feature because it's like I can, if I have a new build of the game that I want people to play, but I don't want to upload it over the base build in case something is broken, I can be like, hey, I put this new weapon in the beta build, but it might break everything. So like go test it there instead of having it override the main branch. But that's the honestly like the super stressful part is it's just like as soon as I push a build live, it goes to everybody. And so it's like I test it on my computer and I send it to our little testing team that I have through 3D Realms, and we make sure everything works right on our end. But like as soon as you push it live, like it goes to everybody. And so I immediately like sit there and just like refresh Steam over and over and over again, waiting for the download to come through. And then I try to be like the first one to test it once it goes live. And I've only had like one time where I like butchered something and it was broken. And I was like, oh shit. And then I just really quickly went and fixed it. But the nice thing is if your game total is under 2 gigs, you can just upload it directly to Steam's backend as a build. If it's above that, you have to do like an FTP thing, and you have to like set up Steam command prompt, and you have to like upload everything that way. And I haven't done that yet, but I'm going to have to eventually. But it's a lot of steps. It's not too bad once you get used to it and like once you figure out how everything goes. But like looking at it to start out with, it's a nightmare, especially like all the different library images. And it was like an entire afternoon of just Photoshop and the Cultic logo and just like making hundreds of these little icons and different. It's exhausting, but it's nice once it's done. It's like you see your thing on your game on Steam, and it's like it's there, like it's on Steam, and all your screenshots are there, and all this. It's really surreal. Like the first time you see your game on Steam, it's crazy. So, but yeah, that's Steam in a nutshell, I guess.
Steam in a nutshell. So Steam is wonderful to upload on. Speedrunners are ruining your game already. Not ruining it, but enjoying it thoroughly. Uh, what are you looking forward to? Now the demo's up, and I mean, obviously full release is on the horizon. At some point once you get into it. But what's kind of next step for you?
I'm really looking forward to the point where I've got like all of the tools I need to start building levels done. Like I like getting all the enemies finished up, getting like the save load system finished and working properly, getting all of the weapons that I want to add added, so I can stop like because building levels takes forever when every like 10 minutes I'm shit, I need to model a new tree. Oh shit, I have to model this, I have to model that, I have to go fix this. Oh, I haven't made doors work yet, I need to make doors work. And so it's like it's building levels takes forever when you don't have the tools to do it, because you're having to stop and like oh, I don't have a script for making fires burn the player yet, and if I want to have hazards, I have to go code that. And so I think it'll be really nice. Like I think a lot of that stuff will be in place with like the Halloween update, which will be good, and then I can like use all those tools to start pushing ahead. But I don't think it'll really be at like content lock until probably the end of the first chapter. And even then, if something sounds cool and there's room for it in the game, then I'll probably keep adding it. But that's really what I want to get to, because right now I'm just like my to-do list is massive. Like I really want to just barrel ahead with levels because that's where I feel like, like until I have more levels done, I'm gonna feel like the game is super far from completion, which it is. But like there's so many other things that need to be done first. I've got all these bugs I want to fix, all these enemy behaviors I want to balance, all these things I want to add, and I really just want to make that list smaller. And then I can just move for it. It's like I want to put an enemy here, I want to put this gun there, I want to add this here, and all those things are done. So I don't have to stop and go make that thing first. I can just put it there. So that's kind of, I really like to get out of this kind of in unstable, constantly adding new features thing and kind of get to the point where all I'm doing is just like building levels and I have all the tools to do that. That's kind of like the point that I'm looking forward to getting to. But I have no idea how far away that is. Like that could easily be like middle of next year for all I know. But I'm also kind of gauging everything based on my previous part-time work on the game, and now that I'm working on it full-time, I'm hoping that that goes a lot faster and that I'm not getting burned out every 2 weeks and having to take like some time off. So that's hopefully that's something that happens sooner than later. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, I've seen on your Twitter you've been working on Molotovs and explosives quite a bit lately. How fun is that?
The Molotovs are fun. Doing the fire simulations to get all this, because like all of the fire sprites and stuff like that, I did myself. I just did a really basic fire simulation in Blender, but like, damn it, those take forever to render. Like, good lord! And then if something's wrong, I have to clear out the baked data and do it again. And I just have so much more appreciation for people who do like full length computer graphics, like feature films and stuff like that. Because good lord almighty, like simulating one person being on fire kills my computer. I can't imagine like simulating like oceans and like Marvel scale like battles and stuff like that. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, it was one of those things that was like, I want to add fire to the game. I had gone back and played because I was initially like, I don't know if I really need fire to be in the game, and I was like, I don't remember how much of a role it really played in the original Blood because but then I went back and I played it again, kind of specifically with my eyes peeled for how much does fire play into Blood and play into how Blood feels as a game. And playing through it again with like a focus on that, it's a lot. Like there's a lot of setting enemies up for like flare kills and a lot of like, deciding how you're going to kill an enemy based on like, like gargoyles, like they're weak to fire. So like, if you're not wanting to waste a whole bunch of shells on them, like just hitting them with a few flares and then peppering them with, the Tommy gun to soften them up until they catch on fire, it's a big part of the game. And so I was like, it's really nuanced, and it's like there are ways to play the game that aren't just running in there with a shotgun. And I was like, I think I kind of want to do that, but if I'm going to do it, I need to do it right. Like I don't want to just have like, like the thing I had before was just like these damaging fire particles that would like stick to any object they touched. And it was a really cheap way of doing fire damage, but if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. So I'm going to have every enemy is going to have their own burning sprite, and fire is going to have a proper like particle system for like propagating fire and spreading. And then enemies are going to have like burning thresholds and burning resistances, and so like some enemies are more, are weaker to fire than others. And so it's like one of those things, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it the hard way. And so and I think it's paid off. Like I think the Molotovs are really fun to use. I think fire looks great in game. The Molamite is ridiculously overpowered. But it's one of those things that is really exciting looking forward, because now I can look at like, well, maybe the grenade launcher needs heat shells, and maybe there's going to be room for a flamethrower weapon in the game, or you know maybe I need to have barrels that are full of, like gasoline instead of, like, well, I guess they're probably explosive barrels, but barrels that make fire instead of explosions, kind of stuff. And then the
Right,
lanterns
yeah.
create proper fire particles now, so the lanterns are a lot more fun to use. And now I can design enemies around kind of this fire mechanic of, So it's really exciting as a mechanic moving forward, but it was a ton of work to get it to where it is already, and it was probably like most of September, I think I probably spent working on fire. It was like just the
I was
entire
about
month
to
was
say,
just like
I was about to
fire.
ask you how long it had taken, because like you said, if it's killing your computer every time you render something, that's what like a 8 to 9 hour process there.
Yeah, well, it's not. I wouldn't say it's that bad. It was maybe like, rendering a full set of enemy sprites before would maybe take like 30 seconds, but with all of the fire simulations in there, it takes like, 5 to 6 minutes, which isn't, not. Let's go upstairs, grab a snack, use the bathroom, come back. But then like if something is wrong, then you have to do it again, and it just takes longer. So yeah, it wasn't like a life ending change of pace, but it definitely. slows things down. Then I had to learn how to do it. I'd never done fire simulations in Blender before, so there was a learning curve of just figuring out how to do that in the first place, and like putting together a good fire shader that looked nice. And I'm still very much a baby when it comes to shaders. My knowledge of them is very limited, so that's still something I'm learning. But it's just like it's one of those things that adds on to the development. So it's like every time I want to add a new enemy, I also have to do burning sprites for them. So it's just one more thing you have to consider. And then like I have to like switch rendering modes when I want to do fire, because it doesn't, I have to use like the cycles rendering system in Blender for that. So it's a lot more work, but I think it will pay off in the end. And it's like you only have to do it once. Like I only have to make the enemy burning sprites one time. So I just get it done, get it over with. So it's not so bad.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for joining me and telling me all about a development of a single man team and your journey in games development. It's been really interesting to listen to, and also putting up with the wonderful connection issues we've had tonight, ladies and gentlemen. You may hear there might be some skipping and jumping in conversation. We had this is our fourth run at this now.
Fourth or fifth, yeah.
Fourth or fifth run we had to have a go at this. But we got there. And well worth. So Jason, for those who are listening at home, where can they find you? Where can they find CULTIC? All that good stuff.
So the CULTIC demo is on Steam right now. You can just go look for CULTIC on Steam and download the demo. It's free. And then you can follow development of the game on my Twitter, which is at JSawsGames. That's pretty much where I post everything. So that would be the best place to keep an eye on it. And then there's a 3D Realms public Discord, has a CULTIC channel in it. And then there's also Steam discussions board for CULTIC. So if you have bugs or feedback or anything like that you want to share, feel free to contribute. I always, I try to read and respond to everything that goes into the Discord and into the Steam boards. So unless you're complaining about the color palette again, in which case I will ignore you. So just turn it off. Just turn it off if you don't like it.
Love it. Again, thank you for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. All the links for all that will be in the description below and on your podcast service as well, wherever you may find that. I'm not sure on all of them. Go find this man's game and go give it a run. It's a bit of fun. I was quite enjoying myself this afternoon going around murdering cultists. It was a good time. Absolutely good
Always
time.
a good
time. If you'd like to find the podcast, if you haven't already, I mean, we've been here for a while. You should know. At Twitter, left_pod. Instagram, 2 Left Thumbs Podcast. And you can find the video version of this on our YouTube channel, which you can find via 2leftthumbs.online. Jason, once again, thank you for joining me. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic week. Talk to you next time. Bye.